Welcome to FESIG, the free energy special interest group, where science meets spirituality in the quest for truth and knowledge to free humanity and transform this planet into a paradise.
Hi everyone. Hey, I beg your pardon, sorry, my video's not on. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to FESIG's 102nd meeting. Today is the 6th of July, 2 days after the 4th of July. But here we are at FESIG. We are wishing you, our American brothers and sisters, happy 4th of July, happy belated 4th of July. It's so good to have all of you here, especially we have Spiri speaking at this first session of our meeting, our 102nd meeting, and then Alfred, Lambremont, Webre, and I, Crystal Gore, will be joining Spiri at the speakers forum. So we have a little forum so we can discuss about the mind, which is a very interesting topic. That's why all of you are here, some 20-something of you here. And then the second session, folks, I want you to stay on because we're going to have the Patty Prasad coming in again to inform us, because the last session we couldn't actually publish the video yet because there's a lot of work to do on the graphic side. So yeah, here we are. We see on the screen that Pontus is helping to share. Thank you, Pontus. Our PowerPoint presentation, if you go to the next slide, which is FESIG's 102nd FESIG meeting. Wow, it's over 100 now. Right, and then we have our co-chairs, Press, Frizzle, Pontus, together with me today. Is Press here, Pontus?
Not yet, he is coming. A little bit late.
Yeah, it's okay. You can help me, co-chair, if it's later. Okay, so if you could scroll down a bit, well, all of you know what FESIG is about, I'm sure, so I wouldn't want to repeat or you get bored. Okay, we are a platform where science meets spirituality very quickly, and I have our wonderful team here. I think there are about some 30-40 regulars here, right, Pontus, from the R&D teams as well. We got the 2 R&D teams. And we meet regularly and we explore and develop our free energy devices. So we are progressing along very well, actually. Right, if you could go to the part where we have the agenda of the meeting, then everyone could see. If you could scroll down a bit, next slide, next slide. Well, I urge all of you viewers, please to subscribe to our YouTube channel, BitChute channel, Odyssey channel, and join us at our Telegram group, because it's like almost very difficult to put anything on Facebook nowadays. But well, Facebook is still good. We still post some stuff there. Right, okay, next one, please, Pontus. So first speaker, we have Sperry Andrews, founder of the Human Connection Institute. He will present the evolution of a socially altruistic, heart-centered intelligence and two-way telepathic awareness. And we'll talk about how to effectively recreate these experiences on human interconnectedness. And on the second part of this first session, we have former CEO Mind-Mastery Coach, that's me, evolutionary coach, Crystal, and Futurist Alfred, Lambremont, Webre of Omniversity, researcher and author of many books, from a forum to discuss the nature of human consciousness and its evolutionary progress and path. Just putting my headset on. And then the second session, we are going to have Patty Prasad coming back, Gaia's shaman, Mi'kmaq elder. She will be talking about updates. Of course, she's helping us to understand what's going on this planet, and she'll be updating us with everything that we need to know with the latest. So because these are very strange times indeed, end times, I would say, it's so important to listen to her
And if you got your questions prepared, she would literally answer anything that you throw at her, unless she's not allowed to, you know. So pen down in your diary our 103rd FESIG meeting on the 3rd of August, 2022, folks. So if you go to the next slide, yes, thank you, Pontus. So you see here on the screen, our BitChute link, our YouTube link, Odyssey, and if you would join us at the FESIG group, Telegram group, that will be excellent, because there you can have interactions with each other. And if there are any questions that is impossible for me to answer all the questions, all the emails, sometimes, you know, it gets lost in the pile. If you join our Telegram FESIG group, you can get instantaneous answers from the rest in the administration. Okay, thank you so much. And you can help each other out there as well. Thank you, Pontus. Right, so without much ado, I'm going to introduce Spiri, our speaker, our first speaker for this meeting. All right, Spiri is furthering the evolution of a socially altruistic, heart-centered intelligence and two-way telepathic awareness. He has written a lot of papers and facilitated hundreds of groups internationally for 40 years. Wow. You know, when you go to FESIG's website, when we announce our speakers, we always link up their websites and their work materials to their names or their photos or the pictures that I posted there. And same goes with the newsletter as well. We send out newsletters only once a month to invite you, officially invite you to join our meetings. And that is doubling up like a newsletter with everything that is, so you won't miss out anything that had happened in our meetings. Like we had the last meeting reports there. We have pictures, we have photographs, we have video links as well. So you're a happy party, really, because we don't charge a single penny and it's free for all. We do it from our hearts. Okay, so if there's any mistake or anything that you're not comfortable with, we appreciate it if you let us know so we can improve, but be patient with us because we are volunteers and we, you know, we're doing this when we are free, when we have the time to do so. So it is good for all. Right, so Spiri has got his testimonials, his papers and everything in his website, all linked up. It's a very, very substantial piece of work, that one. So if you go to his website, you find all the work there. You can catch up with him there. He founded the Human Connection Institute in 1990, and he learned to teach anyone interested how to effectively recreate these experiences in person as well as online via webcam, largely for free as well. Thank you, Spiri. And he gave invited presentations on human interconnectedness and human connection. Like now, we have him. We're so honored to have you, Spiri. So Spiri actually, correct me if I'm wrong, are you teaching at the University of Connecticut?
Yes, at one time.
And the Association for Research and Enlightenment, the United Nations in 1992, right? You were.
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. What an achiever. World Business Academy, Duke University, the Foundations of Mind Conferences, Berkeley, ASCSI conference in Raleigh. Wow. And if you click on Spiri's link by when the newsletter is being sent out, you will see when I announce speakers, I put their bios in there as well. The link, you just have to find the link, the live link, and click, and you catch up with them. So that's it, really. Basically, over to you now, Spiri. We are all ears. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Crystal. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. So with the minutes that I have to share with you, I'd like to do a quick review of how I became, how I appear to be to myself, starting with not being a human being, being in a place, so I don't really know where it was, but we didn't have bodies really. We were incomparably unique every moment. And we were somatically telepathic together. We could feel and sense what it was like to be incomparably unique as each other. And it was very wonderful and beautiful to be in this communion. It's like a state of constant unconditional love all the time. And we were just very playful, very naive, didn't know anything else. And we heard the call that Earth needed some assistance. And I felt like, you know, I would go, that it would be really easy, maybe a week or two at most, to just show everybody that if we just notice the noticing, the verb, the activity of consciousness uniting us all, that everything would be fine very quickly. So I took birth and immediately had a near-death experience at the age of 4, where I existed without a body, heart, or mind, to kind of remind me that I'm formless, essentially, and had no boundary, and that there was only this eternal now of awake awareness, and all of any kind of objectification other than awake aware consciousness was really very transient and temporal. So then again, when I was 32, through many months of meditation, it was by just being aware of awareness, I re-entered this state of being the void in a fully embodied way. And by being anchored there in this eternal now, had this psychokinetic effect on everybody I met, and they would go into unity consciousness with me. And so, having spent the early part of my life and being abducted when I was 17 with a dear friend, and experiencing this telepathic rapport with one of the my abductors, alien abductors, that was really burnt into my soul, that this sharing of a commonly sensed consciousness. I just felt at that point at 32 that it was very clear that the only way for me to really be of any help was to see to figure out how the whole of humanity could share a commonly sensed consciousness consciously instead of so unconsciously. And that the job was quite a bit more complicated because people had been injured or traumatized right from the beginning. And they came in as little babies, and they were objectified as separate and isolated from their caregivers, and they're taught that their caregivers were their mommy and their daddy, and this was this, and that's your sister, and that's your brother. And so everything was fragmented up into these conceptual labels. And this gave us a sense of being isolated, which seemed unsurvivable. So this was one of the first original traumas, was feeling we're not one with all, which we naturally felt as little babies, that we were surprised and lit up and excited that everything was fresh and new every moment. We were fearless. My son, when he was very little, I could hold him on my arm and swing him around. He had no fear of anything bad happening to him. We learn this sense of, no, don't do that. Let's avoid that, and let's have that instead, kind of thing. And this fragmentation of consciousness is really what we're saddled with here and what we're challenged with. So at about 45 years old, sitting on my bed in the middle of the day in my home in Sedona, Arizona, my friends from this other place, wherever it was, maybe 6th or 7th, 8th dimension or something, we didn't have any internal organs, we didn't have any image of any kind. They they came and kind of merged, and we became one consciousness again, even though we were, incomparably unique every moment as indivisible individuals. They said, Sperry, well, you've answered the call, as you well remember, and it hasn't been too easy. It wasn't as easy as you thought it was going to be. And why don't you come home? We miss you. And I felt about it for a while, and for a few moments, and I said, no, I'm really learning a lot here. I had no clue that it could possibly be this crazy. And it's very challenging. And I didn't know anywhere in the universe could be like this. So I'm going to stick it out. And, when I return, which I will, it'll be as though I never left, because we were living in this eternal, immortal, timeless way of being. And I was trying to bring that to the earth, essentially. Alex Collier, who many of you I'm sure know, has talked about how there must be about 200 million so-called star seeds, people that came here to help raise the vibration or collective consciousness of humanity. Because we're all one. The universe is an indivisible whole. And so I wanted to start here talking about the physics of this, because I realized that the scientific, military, industrial, medical, pharmaceutical establishment was, the corporate class, the 0.0001 billionaire class. They're trying to control form, basically. They're trying to control formlessness, formless consciousness also. Somebody's talking something. Hello? So the people that are most identified with form, in my experience, they want to control formlessness, because that's the only way they know how to feel in control. Otherwise, they feel like, well, I don't have enough money, or I don't have enough control, so we have to control everybody and everything. Otherwise, we feel sort of fearful and out of control or something. And so, some of them can get into this sort of sadomasochistic kind of psychosis, where they feel that they have to control everything. And the rest of us feel like we're sort of out of control. We don't know how to be in control. And so most people go along as sheep and just say, tell me what to do and I'll do that. So there's this contrast of how we psychically are orchestrating and organizing ourselves and the whole of our collective consciousness. So I felt like understanding this in science, because most scientists, all those who are just a handful or two at most, who are studying what consciousness is, almost all of them, they throw up their hands, they say, well, we won't know and understand what consciousness is for maybe another 1,000 years or something. So I say, no, we have to understand what consciousness is now in terms of reductionistic, scientific, measurable, empirically demonstrable reality, so that these left-brain people, the male patriarchy, can be convinced that this is something that would actually make their world better if they could actually implement these understandings. And then East could meet West, because the East has all been into meditative consciousness and realizing for thousands of years that, there's really only consciousness, and there's really no me, there's no self, as Gautama and the Dalai Lama, Gautama Buddha and the Dalai Lama and Lao Tzu and so many others have said, is that, they're really, the Dalai Lama just said relatively not too long ago that it's not a question of getting rid of the self, it's a question of realizing that there was no self to begin with. So it's really a very funny situation that we're all in, because we are immortal, we cannot die. And in my near-death experience, there was no death. So it was very funny, but it's also, my first 30 years of my life was really very painful, because I was feeling like I was every bug and leaf and creature on the planet. and I was Hitler, and everybody, and everybody I met and everybody I'd never had met all at once as one single body, heart, and mind, and that was the whole planet and the whole cosmos. And it was a real stretch to accommodate this in a human body, heart, and mind. So I suffered so much that I didn't know how to stop the suffering. And then finally I realized the only way to stop the suffering was to allow it to happen without trying to resist it. It was my resistance to it, feeling that I shouldn't be suffering, that I should be happy like I used to be. And so I just allowed myself to suffer. And then when I really let myself have everything be the way it was happening spontaneously, all that suffering turned into this golden life, light, and joy and love. And I had to learn through this human body, heart, and mind to accept and allow everything to be exactly as it is, which is kind of what meditation is about. Is Brian Josephson, who won the Nobel Prize for the Josephson junction, the tunneling measurement in these amazing instruments, the functional magnetic resonant instruments that can, through magnetism, actually look from outside the actual physical brain of a human being. They can study the whole structure of our neurophysiological psychology, essentially. And so we're that too. We're like a fMRI ourselves, and we're able to study ourselves through meditative consciousness, where we realize there is this mirror-like quality about us, this formless aspect of awakeness that is like a mirror. Like when we step in front of the mirror in our bathroom, instantaneously, the mirror, choicelessly and without any image of its own, it receives and reflects how we appear to be at the level of form. So essentially, meditation is cultivating this mirror-like receptive, reflective capacity. And in the groups I've been doing for 40 years with thousands of people in multicultural groups internationally, largely for free, is about being able to notice this noticing. It's like we've been overly identified with being the noun or the object of the sentence of life, like I'm me, trying to get the top-down, convertible Cadillac or something, and be identified with this objectification of who we think we are and what we think we're doing, where all we need to do is shift our attention to the verb, the seeing, being, breathing, hearing, feeling, knowing, unknowing, okay? And so right now, let's do it. Notice this noticing that we're noticing together, and we notice that the noticing has no object to it. It's an activity. It's a constant activity. It never stops occurring. It's like breathing or seeing. It's like if you try to stop breathing, you can't. You're forced to breathe. We're actually under automatic control here, and so in the physics of this, Einstein said, well, the fourth dimension is time. Well, where is time in space right now? Let's explore that experientially together, please. Okay, so essentially time is coordinating the whole of space in this present moment, right? Well, what quantum physics discovered essentially is that this fourth dimension of time is actually timelessness. It's the observer of space. And when we become conscious of observing, that we're observing space, well, that's what's actually causing it to undergo this transformation from being a probability of the Schrodinger equation of, like, maybe it's this way or maybe it's that way statistically, but by our observing it, the three-dimensional length, width, and depth reality, we're causing it to become deterministic. We are, by being observers or witnesses of our length, width, and depth, we are causing ourselves to become deterministic, and we can determine by how we pay attention and how well we pay attention, what we cause to happen. So we have the New Age CIA created create your own reality kind of thing to try to get everybody involved with, like, oh, you're causing your reality, so you're responsible. So everybody who've been convinced to be separate, self-isolating individuals, and being given lots of LSD and drugs and everything else, the CIA is trying to fragment us into the, be completely chaotic and confused, even though we're getting high and feeling like, wow, I feel one with everything. And so we've got this situation that's completely so funny and cuckoo, that if we would just calm down, like, it's hard to do when I'm trying to explain all this through words and concepts and pointers to what is really beyond words and beyond form and beyond self and beyond, like the mirror. It is, we are this indivisible individual, and we're all indivisible together as incomparably unique individuals that are being recreated. We're actually being deconstructed by the presence of our awakeness. We're seeing and perceiving ourselves to be as we are, and then that instantaneously is deconstructing us and regenerating us and representing us to ourselves as incomparably unique every moment as indivisible individuals. Isn't that amazing? So that's the life force that we feel, the living, the recreation of creation that it said, like in religious traditions, we say that, we're made in the image of our creator. Well, let's say the creation is our creator. And so we are made in the image of creation to be co-creators of creation. And if we would just be conscious that we were co-creating creation, we could have an enlightened species on this planet, you see? So it's really that beautiful. And so I've been doing these groups where we notice what we're feeling and sensing and thinking together as a greater body, heart, and mind, in small and large groups, sometimes as many as 1,000 people, or as few as just 3 people. It helps to get beyond 2 people, because we've almost hypnotized about, through habit, when we're in a dyadic conversation, it's just like, well, okay, you're you and I'm me, and we're doing something, and what are we doing, and how are you doing it, and how am I doing it? And so we get trapped in that conditioning, and then we apply our conditioning to interpreting who we think we are and what we think we're doing. So if you just have a third person, it's very difficult, because we're not usually merging with another person, with 3 people or 2 people in that way. We try to find one person that we feel that we can trust, and then we marry them, and then we try to live with them for our entire lives. And then we give birth to children, and then they give us their undivided attention, and we feel their unconditional love and their dependency upon us. And then we can be unconditionally in undivided attention with them and feel unconditional love with them. And so we need to have children, and we need to have partners who we can trust. Otherwise, we'll divorce them and sue them for all they've got, kind of thing. So it's completely cuckoo the way the world is constructed. So here I am at about 19 minutes and 10 seconds into my 40 minutes. And so I want to lay the groundwork for the physics of this, because until we can establish some kind of left-brained way, because the patriarchy is, they say that men, neurologically, we have millions fewer neurofibers connecting our right and left brain. So men are largely living in their left brain, and women who have 10 to 20 times as much going on in their neurophysiology. And you can actually see this in these neurophysiological scans that people like Joe Dispenza have done and been talking about for 20 years. So women are like have so many intuitions and so many possibilities. It's really beautiful. And they say, men need to become more like women and women need to become more like men, so we can, because men have been gone off as cannon fodder, or go be killed by the neighbors, or let them kill you, or go chase the giraffe and hopefully drag it home for dinner or whatever, going way back. That men needed to not feel or not be so afraid of dying in order to be of service as the weaker sex, so to speak. More men die in childbirth and due to miscarriages than do women, because we are the weaker sex. So men are a little more afraid. They're told by their mothers, go be with your father. Of course, the father is working all the time, and so the son has nobody to go with, and so they're all alone, going like, what do? I don't know what to do. So I should just make money and have stuff and look cool and so on. And so we have this really neurotic, psychotic society where men are like perpetrators of insanity, of control or whatever over women, and women are like, I don't know what to do, tell me what to do. Or they tell the man what to do, and the man, doesn't want to do it or can't follow orders because they're completely, whatever. It's really very scrambled egg time. It's like Humpty Dumpty. How do you put Humpty Dumpty back together again? Everybody's been saying there our whole lives in nursery rhymes, you can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. So nobody's really trying to do that. So in my life, I've been saying, okay, through deep meditation and studying of self-hypnosis, going into deep states of silence and thoughtless awakeness and void-based consciousness, studying the mind and the heart and the body, not only my own, but the whole of nature and everybody. What the heck is going on here? And how can this, nature must have come up with some solution here. It's not, nature isn't bad, or the divine isn't terrible. Everything is beautiful somehow here. And so obviously we're being taught through this, suffering gets our undivided attention, because we're like, ouch, my toe, I hurt it, I stubbed my toe. And so our stubbed toe is painful, and we try to focus on how are we going to heal our poor little toe that we've hurt. So we want to learn how, in the same way, how to balance, because if we can't stay in balance on our right and left feet while we're walking or bicycling, we're going to fall over and hurt ourselves. And so we want to learn how to balance. Well, developing meditative consciousness so that we're aware of the quality and presence of our awakeness continuously, not every now and then, or 20 minutes in the morning or 20 minutes at night. Jiddu Krishnamurti was absolutely wonderful. He was really my first real teacher. He was asked, when do you meditate, like 20 minutes in the morning and the evening? He said, no, you meditate 24/7, for heaven's sakes. So in this, what he meant by that, I found, is that we just need to be awake continuously to this sense of that which is indivisible, that which is formless, mirror-like, that is choiceless. It isn't any body. So it's very terrifying for people in the West who are clinging to who they think they are, what they think they're doing. Who's got what, who doesn't have what? Are you better looking than me, or am I supposed to look better than you? And then you look up to me, and we structure everything around, through imagery and so on. Well, so it's very demanding. I mean, even, Vivekananda came here almost 50 years ago from India, and was very powerful presence, and really ignited this interest in yoga. The yoga of consciousness is to realize, as Saraswati said, who has the only yoga university in the world in India, he said, all the paths of yoga, karma, bhakti, hatha yoga, jnana yoga, all they do is help us to become aware of awareness. And all the yogis and sadhus essentially have been saying in the East really boils down to just becoming aware of awareness, continuously, seamlessly, so it's not, this cannot be fragmented. And once we establish that, someone like myself, you can see I can go blah, 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 but I remain aware of awareness this whole time that I'm talking like this with you, so that hopefully it may be horrifying to listen to me because it will trigger parts of you that will feel like, oh, this is making me feel things that I've tucked away, that my traumas of being objectified and being unfelt and unseen as a little girl, little boy, you know, he's making me feel things I don't want to feel. So I don't want to listen to this guy. He's torturing me. He's a bad person. I hate him, you know? And so it's very hard to teach this to people who don't want to learn it, is what I'm saying by that illustration. Okay, so let me end that whole part of that there, that essentially this is very easy to teach. It's just that people have to be interested in learning it, or unlearning rather, unlearning what they think that they know, and realize that they don't know anything as this awake, aware, mirror-like, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, all-knowing unknowingness, which is immortal and cannot die, has no fear of death at all. So it's really this simple, really. It's not that complicated. Now, the physics of it is that Einstein in the Solvay conference, Louis de Broglie, who I'm pronouncing it improperly, William Clifford, Kaluza and Klein, and James Clerk Maxwell, it always all said there's a fourth dimension that without which you can't explain what's going on in 3 dimensions. But in the Solvay conference, the more conservative physicists said, no, we can't measure that, especially Ernst Mach. He said, if you can't measure it, forget about it. Don't even deal with it. So they all said, okay, all right, we'll just forget about the fourth dimension of space and we'll call it time. So we ended up with this, 4D idea. And then quantum theory came in and said, well, we need to dominate and get rid of the old and become the new, so that we are the new and the old is the old. And so quantum theory kind of, even though Einstein was one of the largest architects of quantum theory, got the Nobel Prize for the photoelectric effect, he said, okay, so we'll just make it 4D where the fourth dimension is time. Well, there are these complex mathematics that nobody wanted to deal with, quaternions and so forth, which deal with this fourth dimension of space, and in which you can't, so they invented these artificial things to deal with motion and rotation in 3 dimensions in an artificial way, which is with fake forces that like contrapuntal and so forth forces, or Coriolis forces that really are not real forces, to deal with the fact that they weren't allowing for a fourth dimension of space. But think of the fact that geometry in its basic, which quantum theory got rid of, they wanted to deal with everything as point particles, like dimensionless points. Now imagine that 3 dimensions, which is a geometry, is made up of dimensionless points. All right. So the whole of 3D is made up of the relationship between length, width, and depth in space, in a sense, over time. So let's realize that all the points in 3 dimensions are all dimensionless points. They have no dimension in and of themselves. And the fourth dimension of space is where all the dimensionless points in 3 dimensions share a single polar point. And the ETs have said through 2 different avenues that the whole universe is actually orchestrated by a single point. And so it's really, that point is actually omnipresent at every point in 3 dimensions. And so it's really exciting that point is actually the observer. It's the witness that localizes the non-local universe at every point, not just for us as human beings, but every dimensionless point in 3 dimensions is actually localizing the non-local universe. And so the whole universe is, by being localized at every dimensionless point in 3 dimensions in our sector of the universe, is actually deconstructing and regenerating and representing the universe to itself in some incomparably unique way. By having deconstructing and regenerating it and representing it, it's recreating creation. And so we have this sense, which is really one of the most fantastic things about being alive, is that we feel like we're fresh and new every moment. It feels like we're like in heaven, like everything is like joyful and whoop-de-doo, and we're in a big party here. This is so we feel in this communion of undivided attention. You know, we hug a child to our heart and we feel this indivisibility of our heart with their heart, and we feel them feeling us, feel them feeling, and they feel us feeling them, feeling undivided in a fully embodied way together. We experience that as unconditional love. So unconditional love is indistinguishable from sharing undivided attention. And this is what will bring about the enlightenment of humanity, is that we can successfully popularize this. And now I'm going to talk about this 5-year, $27 million project that I'm trying to raise funding for, which involves feature and documentary films that I've been working on for 30 years, and a free membership as the next step in social media, where people are able to come online any time of the day or night and join groups in their language, multiple languages, as a free membership. And they're able to watch, they learn about doing it through these tutorials where they have to watch them from beginning to end in order to learn how to do this. So that makes it possible for people that would be hecklers and come in and just try to control other people by disturbing everybody and get the loosh, so to speak, off of them by controlling, sadomasochistically disturbing other people. They can project their agony and their suffering onto other people, and so they're not so alone with their chaos and so forth. So by causing other people to feel chaotic and fearful, they feel less alone with it. And so even murderers, talk about the reason often that they murder people is because they imagine that the other person is suffering. They don't want to kill themselves. So they say, this person I need to relieve them of their suffering, so I'm going to kill them. Just some random stranger. I'm just going to, I can feel them. I saw them yesterday. I've been watching them for days. I'm a complete psychopath. And I'm going to go kill them or rape them or do whatever to them and take them under my control and liberate them by murdering them. And because I'm too cowardly to do it, to kill myself. So I kill people. So I've actually known therapists that work with, like this woman, for example, she was going around killing children, even though she had a daughter, a beautiful little daughter of her own. She was kidnapping babies and murdering them. This is a woman doing this. I mean, honestly. And my friend, who was this therapist dealing with people in multiple personality, I'm sorry to talk about this, but this is reality, people. We have to face all this and feel all this, empathically and compassionately together. This is what's happening on this planet. We have pedophilia. We have all kinds of crazy, horrifying things, people torturing each other to get their adrenochrome and everything else. I mean, we have to get real here. We have to get honest and transparent with each other here, okay? So otherwise we can't be awake and aware in this continuous eternal now together. So this woman, she was so traumatized that she could psychokinetically control people, like my experience that I described. When you become, through meditation, you come anchored in this void-based mirror-like consciousness, you can psychokinetically bring people into unity consciousness and they can feel totally peaceful and safe. But if you're totally, traumatized to the max, you can also do that. You can control people's minds and make them believe and think things. Like in Star Wars, he said, no, there's no, to the drones, there's nothing going on here, just leave us alone. So these are capabilities that we all have. And I'm sure that Alfred will talk to us about these extraterrestrial abilities. We have been cultivated by 22 different extraterrestrial races, our DNA, to be able to have multiple genomes in us as human beings, so that we can, only a few of which are turned on so far, as Alex Collier has talked about, and others. And so as more of our genome gets turned on, we begin to have these amazing powers of control over gravity and control over being able to appear and disappear at will, because we're able to focus our attention so precisely and accurately about where we'd like to go that we can actually dissolve our physical form and reappear in another place in the universe. Getting back to this whole thing with this woman, she almost was successfully destroyed my friend's career, because she was very able to convince her compatriots that my friend had been molesting this woman's daughter, which was completely a lie, but she just wanted to destabilize and destroy this person who was the only person in the world that was trying to help her. So it's many times when we try to help people, they end up being our worst enemy at a certain level, and it's really cuckoo. So I've been through hell and high water a million, billion, countless times at so many levels you can't believe. So this is how I got here. And so this physics of the fact that we are causing 3 dimensions, if we're conscious of consciousness of this 4th dimension, which unites every point in 3 dimensions at a single polar point, that we are timelessness that cannot die. We are immortal. We are the eternal now. We are all that together. It's not about me. I'm the eternal now and you're not, and blah, blah. No, it's about there's only one of us here, for heaven's sakes. How many us's can there be? I like to say that, there's, contemplate that for a moment. How many us's are there? How many cosmoses can there be? How many natures? How many life can there be? There's only one life, one cosmos, one nature, one of us, really. And so we really, even at a conceptual level, we need this new brain, this childlike part of us that evolved out of our reptilian eat or be eaten body, that gave rise over millions of years to our emotional, heart-centered limbic system, where we could form tribal consciousness and survive and thrive better by collaborating and not eating our young, or just whatever. We emerged out of that reptilian and mammalian nervous systems, this neocortex, this childlike conceptualizing ability, which is largely a bicameral split brain, where the right brain is largely nonverbal, connected by the vagus nerve to the reptile and the mammal, so that we can keep track of what we non-verbally, which doesn't have any real image, our sensory and emotional intelligence is more like a field. You feel it? Is it like what we're sensing and feeling right now is like a field of a vast field of information. So that vagus nerve connects our left brain, which is largely like, with sticky notes. This is this, that's that. And you're you, I'm me, and I'm doing this, and you're doing that. And so we need to get our bodies, hearts, and minds, what's McLean called our triune brain, body, heart, and mind, all working together with so that we can realize what our soul, how we are ensouling the whole, so that we can access our spiritual nature, which is the absolute unity of it all. And I'm coming up here in just a few seconds on my 40 minutes.
It's well over
when
now.
when I was 6 years old, I asked my mother, what is, is there some word for everything? And she said, well, that's spiritual. That's the word spirit, Sperry. And I said, oh my God, that's great. There's a word for the oneness of us all. And so we actually are able to learn this, that we're all one in spirit, and we can popularize this through film and social media. And that's the this dehypnotizing humanity. It's a partnership proposal, and you all can get involved. Thank you so very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Sperry. Well, it's been very eloquently put by you, Spiri, about your perception of consciousness and how fitting into this planetary evolutionary process of the consciousness processes, and I mean of the combination of the many thought forms and how others are reacting to there's so many perceptions. It's really very convoluted in the sense that there are so many schools of thoughts here, and there are so many things that we as a group here in FESIG are learning from different speakers. And on the other hand, on the other side of the coin, we're going to have a speaker, Patty Brassard, coming on into the second session, and she will tell you that we are populated on this planet itself by many different ET races. So therefore, it's such a huge, big, wide range of cultures from the far reaches of the solar system or even the universe. So therefore, there are different ways of dealing with the way others think, really, Spiri. And I think on that note, I need to quickly introduce Alfred Lambremont Webre, because he's a futurist. And you did say earlier, what would Alfred say about the ET consciousness, as he has been to the spacecraft, it's been taken up there. So, okay, so I need to introduce Alfred properly, because this is a short little introduction to Alfred, because the next meeting, we're going to have Alfred talk in a longer period of time that will be, I mean, the speaker's full platform that he will be presenting Venus and the excerpts of his new book that is very interesting. Futurist Alfred Lambremont Webre is a change agent whose principal contributions have been founding the science of exopolitics through his 2000 book, Exopolitics and Discovery of the Omniverse, to 2014 as the third major cosmological body after the universe and the multiverse through which humanity understands the cosmos, as set out in his 2014 book, DEO, Dimensional Ecology of the Omniverse, promulgation of the positive future equation, PFE, through which humans co-create a positive future on planet Earth. He also wrote a book called Chronogarchy. Thank you, Alfred, for gifting me that book to read. I will dive into it very quickly. Thank you so much. An interdimensional hidden power structure monitoring the time-space of Earth as its domain of influence, operating as a secret government using quantum access time travel technologies to carry out its operations and mandates. A graduate of Yale University, Yale Law School, and a Fulbright scholar, Alfred has taught at 2 universities, served as General Counsel of the NYC EPA War Crimes Judge, United Nations Outer Space and Peace Representative, and directed the 1977 proposed Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study while a futurist at Stanford Research Institute. Alfred, as a lot of us here know, is very renowned, hosting on WBAI-FM and Vancouver Co-op Radio, and he has been featured on CBC, CBS, CNN, True TV, Press TV, and other networks. You can find Alfred's books available in Amazon, and his good books are really sold at his own website, Omniversity.us. Over to you, Alfred. We can have a sort of a like friendly discussion about each other's perception of consciousness and where it's coming from and where it is going. Thank you. Over to you, Alfred.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And I certainly want to thank Sperry for his very both condensed and wide and deep introduction to consciousness. What I'd like to do, just very briefly, is just take it one step further, and put all of that into the concept of the Omniverse. Which grew out of a proposal which Oxford University Press approached me a few years ago to write a book on extraterrestrials and the law, and out of that, I discovered that there was really no typology of extraterrestrials that was in the extraterrestrial civilizations that was in the public domain. And I sort of, went deeper and deeper and deeper. And out of that, plopped the Omniverse. And so what we have is the universe, the multiverse, and the Omniverse. And those relate to consciousness in a way, because those are the three principal cosmological bodies through which humanity comprehends the cosmos. We're here, we're experiencing consciousness here now in a diversity of levels. The equation expressing the Omniverse is Omniverse equals multiverse plus spiritual dimensions. In other words, that the Omniverse equals the totality of all existing universes. And we are one of the we exist in one, we are in one of the existing universes, which is a singularity of time, energy, and space, time, energy, space, and matter. And two Stanford scientists have estimated the number of universes at 10 to the 7th to the 7th. And if you write out that number by hand, that number would be more than 260 million miles long. So that's the number of universes that there are. And the universe was first discovered by the Sumerian astronomers about 350,000 BC, 3,500 BC. The multiverse, which is the totality of all universes, was discovered or named by the American, by an American scientist, William James, in 1895. meaning the totality of all universes. And in 2014, 3 different persons, including myself, simultaneously published books about the omniverse. We didn't know each other, and we simultaneously in 2014 published books about the omniverse. The definition of the omniverse is that it is the totality of all universes plus the spiritual dimensions. And the spiritual dimensions are the intelligent civilization of souls in the afterlife dimension, plus spiritual beings, plus source. So this is taking sort of spiritual life, which has traditionally been in the area of belief or faith, into the area of science, and sort of the integration of science and spirituality. And what we have in our age now is the integration of spirituality and science, so that now, at this time, the being that you see here, Alfred, and all of our beings, a portion of my deeper soul is based in the spiritual dimension. This is the result of experimentation, of replicable science. A portion of myself is in the spiritual dimension. A portion of myself is incarnated as Alfred, and probably 2 or 3 other beings on Earth and on other planets. In other words, I'm incarnating not only as Alfred, but as other beings, my deeper soul. So that is what we know scientifically now. So that these are the scientific advances of consciousness now in the spiritual dimensions, in which the science of the omniverse is affording us. And what we're developing at Omniversity, which you can go to omniversity.us for our research platform. And we have a department of exopolitics, department of exosciences, department of sci-sciences, and department of spiritual sciences there. And you can go to omniversity.info for our classes and courses. And these are classes and courses in exopolitics, exosciences, sci-sciences, and spiritual sciences. The universities were chartered to study universes of time, energy, space, and matter. However, they are gatekeeping, universities are gatekeeping multidimensional knowledge of the omniverse, of exosciences, sci-sciences, exopolitics, and spiritual knowledge. And so that's why we founded the Omniversity. I spent many years going up against a blank wall, trying to get courses in multidimensional knowledge started at universities. And that is because universities are chartered to study the canonical sciences in universes of time, energy, space, and matter. However, this is the age of the omniverse, in multidimensional sciences and knowledge of exosciences, exopolitics, sciences, and spiritual sciences. And so that's why we have the Omniverse. So what we've done now is to bring to Earth and to ground the Omniverse as a new cosmological body for the first time after the universe, the multiverse, and the Omniverse. And we've grounded the Omniversity to go after the university. And that's been our work. And so I just wanted to bring those sort of very practical portals. And what I hope to do in our next appearance is I have a PowerPoint of it's about 39 slides in which I can go into more depth.
Yeah, of course, you can have
on the
45 minutes to an
Omniverse
hour
because
to do that presentation.
because what we're doing is we're bringing actually new conceptions to the planet. So that's what I want to introduce is something new.
That's wonderful, Alfred.
Yeah, thank you for your receptivity.
Insatiable thirst for knowledge. People are clamoring for truth and knowledge like no other era before in the past. Before, in the past, people were like even in the 70s, in the 80s, or even in the 90s, majority of Homo sapiens human beings on this planet are literally quite fast asleep, and they just embrace and accept life on a daily basis as it is. And then after the 90s come the 2020 onwards, I mean like 2019, 2018, at the turn of the century, at the turn of year 2000 onwards, there's been a huge big demand for books that are written about consciousness, isn't it, Alfred? Spiri? And people want to know. They started to ask questions. Who am I? What am I doing here on this planet? How is this going to pan out? And where do we come from? All these questions have been asked. And so people are beginning to tread over the boundary, the what do you call that? The furthest frontiers of their thought systems to explore further. And so now we have disclosures, we have whistleblowers coming up, and then we have like one of our speakers, Gary Cassidy, starting, well, was it in year 2006, like that. She started coming in with Project Camelot, interviewing the whistleblowers, and they were like, wow, disclosure time, and talking about the secret space program, the SSP with James Rink coming in as well. And so people are expanding their minds, and they're accepting other civilizations, extraterrestrial beings, other races. And so Spiri was talking about how varied the perception and the thought system and the way narcissistic people think, and how they make people produce illusion so they can feel the power to control, and it's there, and so they don't feel alone. So when he was talking about that, I think it is not about trying to understand how the others think. Actually, it is about understanding that we are in this planet on an experiment. We've been experimented upon, and that we are not the only species. There are many, many, many races, ET races coming here, either reincarnated, born or walk-ins or hybridized, or there's so many different cultures here from the far reaches of the universe as well. So therefore, it is very hard to understand how they perceive the day-to-day living and how they treat others and all that. It's very, very difficult, especially when there's such a wide, huge, big variety of cultures here on this planet, isn't it, Alfred? That's why you wrote those books, Omniverse, and you have your Omniversity, and you talk about the different thought systems as well, didn't you, in your books? Or is that what?
Yes, right. And so what I've tried is to bring one of the people that I met with in the early 1970s. I met with him at the University of Cincinnati, where we were instrumental in founding the World Good News Network, was Buckminster Fuller. Mm-hmm. And Bucky's philosophy was that you really don't, to do progress, you don't fight against an existing system. You have to come and really found an entirely new system. And so to really transform consciousness on this planet, which has had occupation by so many dark forces, by the Draco reptilians, by thought forms that are dedicated to duality consciousness of I win, you lose. I mean, that's basically the consciousness that is controlling, a large part of the dominant culture is duality consciousness. I win, you lose.
Yes, on that point. On that point, Alfred, before I lost it on the thoughts path, I was just going to say that on the dualistic consciousness, dualism is important for the lessons that we have to go through in our spiritual journey, our pathways to ascension. And on the other hand, it is necessary. So the dualistic lessons that we are forced to face, as Spiri was saying, face the fear and the suffering, surrender, and you'll be liberated. That is one way of progressing in our consciousness. But on the other hand, on the other side of the coin, it is not fair, because we are bombarded with this dark, heavy energies, and we were being put into the petri dish and being experimented upon. And so there had been interferences in our spiritual progress, our evolutionary pathway. So therefore so the people has been asking for some intervention. On the other hand, we are also aware that there are some of us here. That's why those who consider themselves as aware and awake could possibly be star seeds who had volunteered, as when Spiri started his talk, that he has had this feeling, this connection with the knowing that he had volunteered to come here on this planet, along with basically all of us here had volunteered as starseeds to come here to help humanity remember who they truly are, to help them awaken. As Sasha Stone would say, arise, Homo sapiens sapien. So there had been many of us who are walking our talk in our divine mission. And so we bring truth and knowledge to the people. But on the other hand, this consciousness thing is also unanimously a one mind consciousness, I would say. As Spiri has put it, he says, okay, We all one. When we get into the subconscious level, we are on the conscious level now. So we are the sum total of our life's experiences as we go through the journey in this particular lifetime that we are consciously aware of. But the moment we shock the nervous system to have access to the subconscious mind, that is the connection to the higher self, the oversoul that you were talking about, Alfred. So when that happens, you say that you are a fragment of the higher self, the oversoul somewhere. And there are many fragments who are in embodiment in other dimensional existences or in other planets at the same time. But so therefore, in the big picture, our next speaker will clarify that. Patty Brossard, would say all that very well and eloquently, really. So the big picture is gradually all of us, dark or divine or whatever, or positive or negative, we all converge together anyway. It's just a matter of time, and we all come back to source as one. Do you have the same thought about that, Alfred?
There is no way that I could answer that other than I think that we're all sort of presenting our views. So please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Thank you both and all of you so much for caring about what I have to say. Well, so what is very apparent is that if you're going to create a universe, because there are so many billions, zillions, countless numbers of universes, the way you create a universe in physics is that you have a undifferentiated void that has no boundary. There's no thing. You can't divide it against itself because there's no thing to divide. So when it collapses and becomes localized and have boundaries as a single dimensionless point in the beginnings of dimensionality as a point in 3 dimensions, for one example, you have the entire boundless void, like gravitation, potential energy, collapsing and being concentrated, the entire void being concentrated at a point. So you have like a Venn diagram there, and then that gives rise to this very rapid inflation of these twists around the zero-dimensional point, such that many other dimensionless points appear to be discrete and from each other, but at the same time, because they're the void, they are continuous. So there's contingents and continuous interconnectedness of this evolution and rapid inflation of space-time. So these points are essentially, by being the void, are indivisibly uniting the whole of the origination of what we're calling space over clock time, where time is actually a measure, clock time is a measure of frequency or the rate at which space is being related to space. And this is the birth of consciousness or awareness, primordial awareness, which ultimately flowers into human consciousness billions of years later. So we have this, with our most empirical measurements with very expensive measuring equipment, cosmologically, we've been able to notice that the universe is actually, as Lemaitre pointed out to Einstein, the universe is expanding, okay? And why is it expanding? It's because it's observing itself to be itself, regenerating and recreating and representing itself to itself, seamlessly, not even incrementally. It's like a continuous recreation of creation, and that is causing and fueling the expansion, the rapid accelerating expansion of space-time, which we are measuring, that our universe is expanding and accelerating in its expansion. Okay, so the universe is the expansion of consciousness. All right, so the universe is conscious of itself in that sense. It's no accident that it would create sentient creatures that would be conscious of themselves as consciousness and hopefully become conscious of consciousness together, for heaven's sakes, because otherwise we're not integrated with the universe that created us, for heaven's sakes. So, and it is for heaven's sake that we want to wake up in this way. So this, so that's basically what I wanted to say there, is that, no matter how you go about it, we have to ultimately, admit and relax and let go and surrender to know ourselves as this incremental recreation that is fresh and new every moment, which is the life force, which is love itself, which is the communion of all that is as an undivided whole. In the same way that the void cannot be divided against itself, we cannot be divided against one another or against any bug or leaf or creature. And so we can restore the ecosystem, and we just need to wake up here. And that's what we're in the middle of here, because we're in the expansion of the universe. We're actually making more observations per unit area space-time. That's what's fueling and driving the expansion of space-time, energy and matter, and ultimately mind and body. So in this, as you said, Crystal, at 2020 here, or the year 2000, we're naturally beginning to notice the fact that we're noticing more and more every single instant, and that we're noticing more every moment with each other. We can't not notice the fact of our noticing, because there's more noticing occurring per unit area space-time as the universe expands and accelerates. So we're just going like whoop. It's like we're darkest before the dawn. We're just going like whoop. Oh my God, we're consciousness, for heaven's sakes, and we can have an enlightened species on this planet. And we're inevitably going in that direction. Thank heavens, it's already on automatic.
Yes. So you were talking about surrendering and not accepting the atrocities of what's going on for the last 2 years. These are two different thought forms that we need to reconcile. Really. I mean, okay, we surrender. Okay, we surrender. As in the school of hypnotism, we have learned to surrender to the higher self by shocking the nervous system 2, 3, 1, sleep, as in hypnosis. So you have access to the subconscious mind, and you have surrendered to your higher self. You surrendered to the divine, the divinity that you are. As Alex Collier was saying, the Andromedans were saying that we are the Patals. We are powerful spiritual royalty beings walking on earth. So we surrender to that. It's kind of like the higher self analogy. Okay, and then on another context,
well,
you
may
say
I say
surrender.
about that in response to that, Crystal, is that when we surrender, it doesn't mean that we let ourselves be taken over and downtrodden.
No.
When we surrender, we realize we become conscious and self-aware, and then we realize how we can handle the tyrants that are, wanting to get their loosh and their sense of tyrannical control, to feel more in control, and we can be more conscious of how to relate to them. And as in what is called the field of what's it called in ecology, what's it called, psycho or something ecology, where they realized that making the corporations their enemies was not working, and that they needed to educate the corporations by being friendly, and that worked a lot better. Eco-psychology, what it's called. And so we need to be friendly with these murderous, genocidal maniacs and understand them. By surrendering, we can be more empathetic and compassionate. We might need to, eliminate them so they can recycle and so forth. But, some of them they're never gonna wake up unless they're recycled or something. So there's a lot of various aspects.
Oh, there are two different contexts here, Spiri. When you surrender, you're surrendering to the awesomely powerful divinity that you are, the sovereign integral of the well, the patal. Okay. And then when you surrender to that, then you realize, then you wake up and you realize that, wow, what are they trying to do to me? Jack me? No. I won't have that. So it is an awakening process. It is not surrendering to the atrocities of the dark forces, what they're doing to us. So it is the opposite, basically. So if we are not surrendering to the fear and the suffering, then we are surrendering to our divinity, and we become fearless.
Yeah, we become liberated.
Yeah,
We're liberated spiritually, and we're not controlled by their insanity anymore.
And David Bain, our physics bro, was saying acceptance does not mean surrender. Yay! He's quite a warrior here in the UK, David. Yeah, he's been doing a lot of good work, to wake people up. All right. So what say you, Alfred?
Yeah.
Before we close. Yeah. Hi. Oh, is Patty here? Is that Patty? Actually, I was like waiting.
Yep.
Oh, cool. You just came in, Patty?
Yeah, it was your old password on the account. That's what kept kicking it back out. I had to jump through some hoops to get rid of the old password.
Oh, wonderful.
Because it wasn't letting me in.
Oh, okay. So our second session speaker is here, and I'm going to close this first session now. Is there anything that you want to add to that, Alfred?
Well, just all of them, the very differing perspective. The perspective that I have on universe, multiverse, omniverse is that, for example, it's the totality of the spiritual dimensions, the intelligent civilization of souls plus spiritual beings plus source that are creating and maintaining all of the universes. Whereas I think that Sperry was describing the canonical scientific perspective of sort of how universes, self-inflate, etc. So these are two different ways of describing how universes propagate. So these are different perspectives. The perspective that I present through the Omniverse is that there is really a spiritual dimension which is creating and maintaining all of reality. And that is the energy which sustains consciousness. Essentially, consciousness is the consciousness of source, of God. So that's my perspective.
So we start from the letting go of the sum total of your life's experiences that formed the conscious mind, that conscious level, which is the beta level of consciousness, and beta, alpha, theta, delta. And then as we dive lower and lower into the deeper recesses of our consciousness, then we hit the subconscious mind from the alpha, theta, and delta. And delta is where it's operating at 0 to 5 cycles per second. And that's when you have somnambulistic stance, where you are in connection with the divinity, and you become you're able to you are your spiritual higher self, and you've got your third eye open, and all your senses are so heightened that you could remember your past life, you could remember who you truly are. And like as in dreams, when you sleep, you are in another time-space dimension, another avatar. All right. So with that, is there any last thing you want to enlighten us with, Spiri, before I close for the next session?
Well, I feel like I pretty much said everything that I mean. There's always more to say, but the one heart, body, and mind, soul, and spirit that we all are. Let's just notice that continuously from here on forward, and become a beacon of all loving light, and to illuminate the darkness, so that, as they say, when you light a candle in a darkened room, what happens to the darkness? It flees or it disappears, and you have light instead of darkness.
Thank you.
With a single candle. So we're a candle here.
We are. Well said, Sperry. Is there any last words you want to say, Alfred, before I pass it over to the coaching? And if
No,
there's any
I think
questions.
I said what I wanted to say.
Right. Is there anybody here who wants to add in to the discussion here very quickly before we close and move on to the second session? Fres, are you there, co-chair? Pontus?
Yeah, I finally made it back.
And there you are.
Yeah, thank you, Albert, for being here today. Alfred, I'm really glad to see you here.
Oh,
so back to you, Krista.
Alfred will be speaking in the next meeting where he will have the full platform, and he will enlighten us with his good research work from the Omniversity. Thank you, Alfred. Thank you, Spiri, for your presentation. It's really very interesting. It's good to explore the mind and consciousness now and again. All right, Pontus, have you got anything that you want to add?
No, thank you. It has been very interesting. Thank you all.
Thank you. All right. Did we see any hands up? I can't see any. Okay, so there being no other business now, this first session of FESIG 102nd meeting is adjourned to the second session, where Patty Prasad will be speaking, updating us with the latest. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Namaste.